Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone listening to Comment Below and Let Me Know's first live podcast. I am FrancoisT and I'll be your host for this morning, afternoon, or evening, depending on where you are coming from. I hope you've all had a wonderful day. Today in Australia is Thursday. Around the world it might still be Wednesday where you are. But while you are listening to this podcast, if you have any comments, please feel free to leave them. You'll definitely be receiving a shout out as we continue along on our way for this first audio podcast in the Comment Below and Let Me Know series. So Chase is here. Chase is here first. Hello, Chase, and welcome to the podcast. Hope you're having a wonderful day. Any news that you might like to share so far today? So a few things that I want to discuss, excuse me, in this very first podcast. First of all, I want to touch on some issues that I feel have come up. The first issue that I want to discuss is regarding hurtful activity. Obviously, we've had some events that have been happening recently, and especially in Virginia, that I'm sure have touched all of us. And the problem with that seems to be that it seems to be motivated by racism. And it's certainly something that should not be occurring, certainly not in 2017. I strongly feel that, everyone has the right to their own opinions, but at the very least we should be able to expect civil liberties between all races and all people. I come from a very minor, minority group myself. I'm part of the LGBTIQ community, and I know that there are people out there that don't necessarily agree with what I'm doing. But at the same time, provided they are civil towards me, I respect the fact that they have their own opinion. Obviously, this was not the case in Charlottesville, and I just wanted to talk to you guys about, well, freedom of speech, but when freedom of speech suddenly becomes a personal attack, or, just doesn't go the way that it probably should have gone in the first place. If you have any stories that you want me to discuss regarding race or freedom of speech or anything else in today's podcast, please let me know and I will certainly get to it. I just want to say hello to Marissa. Yes, Marissa, Ghost Francois today. Yes, it's absolutely great to be here. I'm considering playing some music, but I don't know if that will be actually allowed. But if it is, I wouldn't mind playing some music during this podcast. I probably should have researched that, but anyway. So yeah, it's just something that's been bugging me and that's been on my mind recently, and I just wanted to get that out there. Let's see what else is going on. So, what else is making news today? Anything interesting? So, obviously in Australia, some of you know that we are having a plebiscite coming up, and it's really interesting because they are going to be sending out votes via the mail, which almost never happens. People normally have to go to the voting polls, as you guys know. And what is even worse about the situation is they're not going to make it compulsory. So if anyone doesn't want to vote, or if they forget to vote, their vote won't count. And I feel that this is a great injustice. I feel like everyone should be voting. So yeah, what are your thoughts about it? Do you come from a place where gay marriage is legalised? And if so, do you understand what's going on in Australia? Do you come from Australia? Do you have an opinion? Certainly let me know. Oh, excuse me, guys. I apologize about that. All right, well, I'm going to try to put on some music. So let's see what I can put on here in the background. Actually, I might not put on some music. Oh, there we go. All right, so let's take some messages here. If you would like to leave a comment during this podcast, there are a couple of different ways to do it. You can either leave me a message here on the official page, the YouTube channel, audio podcast, or you can leave it at our comment below and let me know group, or you can send me a message on Facebook. I have all of those avenues open. Let's turn to the chat bar now here on YouTube. And Marissa says, in Canada, gay marriage has been legal for years. Very blessed. Yeah, so it's interesting how it has been legal there for many years over in Canada, and yet over in Australia we are so far behind. Even recently, obviously, the laws changed in the United States, and they still haven't changed over here in Australia. The laws changed in England, and they still haven't changed in Australia. I just find it incredibly ridiculous and incredibly archaic. I've made my opinion quite well known in many chats how I feel about this issue and how archaic it is. I'm just very surprised about it. Marissa saying, Google says since 2005, but with civil marriages and other alternative rights before that across the country. There you go. So in, I believe in 2004 or something here, we had a Prime Minister in Australia. His name was John Howard, and John Howard actually changed the law. I wasn't aware of that at the time. I mean, in 2004, I wasn't necessarily thinking about getting married, but recent research has shown that he was the one that changed everything. John Howard was, I guess in the States, what you would call a Republican. If you had to sort of go between the two major parties in the US, he was more like a Republican. So it shouldn't surprise that he would take away certain civil liberties. Marissa says, Canada became the first country outside of Europe and the fourth country in the world to legalize same-sex marriage nationwide. Oh, bless you, Canada. That's fantastic that they did. Chase says, I think in the US it was just legal last year. Okay, well, I mean, but still, like, I think it's fantastic that they have legalized it last year, and that they legalized it in England, and obviously Canada's had it for years, and yet in Australia we're still so far behind. And excuse me, guys. One of the things that concerns, I'm just going to take a quick drink here, excuse me. So sorry about that. One of the things that concerns the Australian LGBTI community the most is the fact that the government won't just legalise it, the fact that we have to go through this plebiscite. It's been a rather interesting discussion and conversation, not only that people have had that I've read about, but that I've had with people as well. It seems that the government doesn't want to sort of take responsibility for this move, so that's why they're making this vote happen. What's really interesting though about a plebiscite, in case you didn't know, is that if the votes come back, even if they come back in with the majority of the votes being for gay marriage, it is not legally binding, so the government does not actually have to change this, which is annoying, but I am still telling everyone to vote yes, because I think at the end of the day, I hope the government will just bend to what the public wants, and certainly surveys show that the majority of Australia does want to change this and you know, move forward and be more of a progressive country than we are. But either way, this is our chance as a nation to speak up. So I'm hoping that people do take this seriously and do vote yes, because with it not being legally binding, there has been some backlash with some people saying, don't vote, this is an insult, where I still think, there's still that chance that if we vote and the majority says yes, that it will get legalized. Marissa says, I have 2 good USA friends who rushed marriages planned for later this year to immediately after Trump was elected in fear of the right being taken. Yeah, I'm not so surprised. I think there were a lot of people that feared the changes that would come with Trump being elected into the White House. I'm happy for them that they got married. I feel so sorry for them that they had to rush their marriages. Marissa goes on saying, California, it was legal, then illegal, then legal again. So the fear was fact-based. Oh, well, there you go. Yeah, so did that have anything to do with John Howard, or was that something that happened prior to him coming into office? I'm guessing, obviously, if it's happening in California, it's a state law thing. But yeah, that's rather interesting that they sort of went back and forth on it. It's really interesting when you think about other things that are going on. Like, for example, I know that in certain states in the United States of America, they've legalized marijuana. Now, if they legalized marijuana and there was an issue with it, and they made it illegal once more, that's one thing. But this is a civil rights law. So it's interesting that they would make it illegal after legalizing it. I guess they're probably bound to certain pressures. That's another thing I want to get into while we are here discussing this podcast today. So a lot of people that are coming back and talking about reasons why the LGBTIQ community should not be getting married, but generally speaking, they're related to religion. Now, this is something that I don't quite understand. I'd love to get your opinion on it. So what I am finding out is, oh, sorry about those noises in the background. They are rather loud, aren't they? What I am hearing from the majority of people when it comes to them responding about being against the LGBTIQ community is because it is based on religion. And I find this really interesting because you talk to anyone in the LGBTIQ community, and when it comes to equality, I would hazard a guess that the majority of people in any LGBTIQ community around the world would say that they want equal rights having nothing to do with religion. We do not want to grandstand. We do not want to, march into a church and demand that the Bible be rewritten. We don't need people to say, and I hope this doesn't offend anyone, but I'm just giving an example here, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Gay. We're not looking to change religion at all. We're just looking to change the law. There is a very distinct difference between church and the state. And so I just find it very fascinating that people that come back to the potential legalization of gay marriage or the legalization of gay marriage, depending on where you are, as we've already said, some people have legalized it, that they come back to it because their religion says that this is not necessarily appropriate. I think, for me, religion should not stand in the law. Of course, this brings up a whole other myriad of topics, such as in America, it is common to say, in God we trust. Now, I don't necessarily know if that's necessarily a religious thing or if it's just a saying that is used. But it does bring up an interesting point. So what's your thoughts on the difference between legalizing gay marriage and the equality that comes with it, and the response that comes from the religious community, when what the majority of the LGBTIQ community people are trying to do is try and get equality for the law and not for religion? Let's go on to some more of your quotes here. Chase is saying that he and his partner got married even though it wasn't legal. his partner believes if you want to get married, you should be able to, no matter the gender. I think that's wonderful that your partner thinks that in you as well. Some people will come back, especially in Australia, and say, well, if you want to get married, why don't you just do it? You can have what's the word? I've totally forgotten what the word is, but as like a civil ceremony. But the thing is, again, like a civil ceremony does not give the same rights as marriage does. It's very different. And so that's why we are still fighting to get married. But I like your partner's point of view. Marissa says, just looked it up, and California halted issuing new same-sex marriage licenses from 2008 to 2013, but they did honour previous marriages as legal. I think that's really good. So speaking of marriages, here's an interesting story for you. A celebrity in Australia, I won't necessarily name who, but for the sake of example, we'll say a celebrity in Australia, and this is a true story, actually flew out to a neighbouring nation, New Zealand, to get married, then flew back to Australia to have the ceremony. Now, what's interesting is he and his partner wanted to actually get married, so that's why they did it. They flew over there to get married. It will not be recognised though in this country, which is really sad. So it's really good that despite the fact that California halted the licenses from 2008 to 2013, that they still did honour previous marriages as legal. I think that these two celebrities came up with a fantastic loophole, and I just wish that it would have been recognised, but it's not going to be recognised here until we legalise gay marriage. Okay. So we're having an interesting discussion going on here in the YouTube room at the moment about why we would get married. Is it to have the same rights as a hetero couple? So that's really interesting. I think for me, it definitely is about having those same rights. I mean, yes, you know, at the end of the day, marriage it's a beautiful thing, and it's a wonderful ceremony and all of that. And don't get me wrong, and it's all about the love, and I get that. But as someone who can be logical as well as emotional, the logical side always says to me, marriage is a contract between two people to say that they will, stay together and be married, at least until such a time that they're going to get a divorce. And so. But it's what the contract gives them aside from the couple being bound together. It's about how they are recognised, what they receive, and so on and so forth. So it's really interesting. Before I go any further, I just want to say hello to Angels. Angels has joined us. Angels saying, hello all, just woke up at 5:50 a.m. and noticed you're live, so made it randomly. Well, thank you very much, Angels. We appreciate you being here. Yes, this was definitely a random idea. I looked at the Eastern Standard Current Time and thought maybe we'll do a quick podcast chat here. So today's topic, Angels, well, we've got a few topics because it's our first live audio podcast. So if there's anything that anyone else would like to discuss, please let me know and I will certainly bring it up. But in the meantime, we are talking about LGBTIQ rights and more specifically gay marriage, because over here in Australia, we are looking to change that. With the plebiscite that's going to be going out as of next month, so we do have to wait a while, and also the fact that this plebiscite is not only not legally binding, but also it's not compulsory for everyone to vote. So Marissa brings up a very interesting point. She says, as a beneficiary for work benefits, the will, being in the hospital and being recognised as next of kin and so much more, it's very important to be legal and have that right, which is absolutely right. So in Australia, if you're a gay couple, you don't have that right. It's very sad. So but there is something really interesting though. What do you guys call it? I don't know what you call it over there, but you know, like Section 8 and stuff like that. We have something similar, like a benefits thing here in Australia. And with our benefits thing, they will recognize if you are in a gay relationship, but the reason they do is to lower the income they give you. So it's really interesting how, you know, the only group that will recognize this at all are the ones that will do so that they can save money that people are being received. So people who are on these benefits, maybe people that are out of work, people who have disabilities, etc., etc. And so if you're in a gay relationship, especially if you're living with someone, you have to tell them, and then they will decrease the amount of money that you can get because you're living with someone else, and yet they won't recognize it in any other way, shape or form, which I found really interesting. Angel says, in my opinion, there should be a blanket law that gay marriage is legal. It's a no-brainer. It's 2017. Yeah, I completely agree with you, Angels. I mean, as I keep saying in a lot of my chats, this law is very archaic. Despite the fact that it only actually changed in 2004, and that's something that I'm still trying to work out, because when you think about it, it wasn't that long ago. It was just 12 years ago. So it wasn't that long ago in the scheme of things. But what I like to call Republican former Prime Minister, John Howard, certainly changed everything. It's very interesting. We have a party over here in Australia, which is one of the two preferred parties, and their party name is Liberal, and yet you will never see a less liberal party. It's so ironic that they have that name. Because definitely if I were to liken Liberal to, as I say, one of the two preferred parties in the US, they're definitely Republican. So it's very ironic. The other party of the two preferred is Labour. Labour is definitely much more of a liberal, like a, as you would say in America, liberal, libertarian sort of party. Chase says the government keeps removing our history, which is not fair. They are removing the South's history, but not the North's. That's interesting. Definitely that will be something to discuss. Is there anything else you would like to say on the topic, Chase? I don't know a lot about it personally. Is there anything else that you would like to add? That would be very interesting to discuss. Marissa says yes, in very big letters, so she's definitely emphasizing it. This is often an excuse given by our governments because straight people could fake being gay when they're actually grooms to get extra things like welfare and such. Yeah, exactly right. And welfare is exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah. I just find it fascinating that you know, welfare is willing to accept it as, you know, as being an official thing that they'll recognise purely to take money away, where for the sake of anyone in the LGBTIQ community receiving actual benefits, it's not recognised. I feel like that's taking us quite a bit backwards, actually. Oh my word. Okay, so just taking a moment here. So Chase says the fact that they are screaming about it now when hello it's been up for as long as I can remember now. Oh, you're talking about the sorry, just a moment. You're talking about the history. Yeah, so I honestly don't, as I say, I don't know much about the issue, so I can't really comment too much. But in a general sense, I will say that if something is historic, it should, you know, probably remain there. I know that we have certain laws in Australia. I don't know if you guys do in America or Canada or in Europe or wherever, but we have laws here with things that are heritage listed. So if something has been in a certain place for a certain amount of time, it cannot be removed. So I guess that's a good thing. If something goes on a heritage list, then it is protected. But yeah. Marissa says, for example, if you claim a family of 2 men and one is your dependent, you qualify for tax benefits. So they use fraud as an excuse, like no men and women are ever roomies, lol. Yeah, I mean, that's a very good point there too. Excuse me. That's a very good point there too, Marissa. Um, oh, Marissa's saying she heard a bird. Oh, she says, I heard a bird and you went quiet for a second, lol. I thought you got eaten. Oh, no. No, sorry, Marissa, for going quiet there. There was a little bird right outside my windows. Window, not windows. Mr. Ascending. Oh, okay. Sorry about that. I'll read that out. So yes, it's a very interesting topic, that's for sure. So are there any other topics that anyone would like to discuss before we move on to the next thing? So I'm still looking at everyone. Okay, so just looking to see what other things are going on in the world. So I've come across actually an article, and I might just read it out. It's headed, "When it comes to same-sex marriage, not all views deserve respect." So this is an opinion piece. Let's read this. One of the exceptions in the ongoing debate over marriage reform in Australia is that all views should be respected. But if we want to uphold the values of the Enlightenment and of deliberative democracy, then whatever side of the debate you are on, demanding views be treated with respect is a flawed idea. This may sound contradictory, but it goes to a point too often missed in such circumstances. People are worthy of respect, ideas are not. We naturally adopt a respectful attitude to people. At this basic level, people have to work hard to lose our respect, and even then, we may choose not to disregard them because we value human life and dignity. This is a very interesting article. We appreciate that they contribute in some way to the social norms we all enjoy, and that they, like us, are creators of society as well as participants in it. Ideas have no such empathetic traction. Unlike people, they cannot suffer. They do not know joy, and they do not contribute by themselves to the happiness of others. That is not to say there are no really good or really bad ideas, but they do need to stand or fall exclusively on their merits and often within their own contexts. They should be subject to critical scrutiny and survive only through articulation and argumentation. Okay, are we getting to the point back in now? Here we go. The Australian Christian Lobby, for example, lists 4 assertions on its website as to why same-sex marriage should not be permitted. First is redefining marriage will threaten your freedom of speech. Well, that's really interesting. This is my opinion. It's really interesting they say it will threaten your freedom of speech. I don't necessarily agree with that. I think people are still going to speak up and say whatever it is that they want to say about marriage equality, whether it is legalized or not. The next one is redefining marriage can take away your religious freedom. Now, Again, I don't think this is necessarily the case. I don't think redefining marriage is going to take away religious freedom, because once again, redefining marriage in this sense, we are asking for it to happen for the sake of the law, not for the sake of the church. So again, this is something that I sort of say, well, how can you make that statement? The third one, redefining marriage is the step before redefining gender itself. Okay. Um, I definitely don't agree with that at all. But let's move on. And redefining marriage will take away children's rights. Every child deserves a mum and a dad. So what's your response on those? The last one I find the most offensive. There have been commercials here in Australia that have been promoting that gay marriage, it will be a terrible thing because children will not be given the right to a mother and a father exclusively. It's something that I found really interesting, and I would actually like to take a moment to quickly discuss this with you guys. I find it funny that the response in this instance of talking about this commercial to the issue of gay marriage is to discuss something else. So rather than saying, gay marriage is bad because of the Bible, which I guess relates to the topic, despite the fact that you know my views, these people are actually going out of their way to say gay marriage shouldn't happen because children need a mum and a dad. It's like, well, hang on. Who said anything about children? Like, hopefully we get there, but gay marriage is not about children. Gay marriage is about getting married. So I certainly found that very interesting. Marissa is saying, sing us a song. Are you serious, Marissa? Sing a song. Can't sing a song at the moment. But maybe I will in my next podcast. Chase is saying, come on, leave up the monuments because they're not hurting anyone. Yeah, I completely agree. Why are they tearing them down? Do they have plans to put something there instead? What are the reasons? And Marissa's asking if angels fell back asleep. I think angels may have fallen back asleep, but that's okay. It's very early over there in the UK. All right, so I just want to take this moment in our podcast to do a little bit of, well, what we call advertising or name dropping. So here we go. If you are enjoying this podcast, or if you enjoy any of the videos, comment below and let me know. Please come along to our official Facebook page. We have our first official comment below and let me know Facebook page, where you will learn all the ins, outs, things that happen behind the scenes, and get full VIP treatment. Go onto Facebook and in the search bar type in comment below and let me know. We look forward to having you over there, and we'll welcome you in with a nice latte and a couple of cookies. So, yes. Oh, well, Marissa's saying we should also talk about vanilla Coke. Well, yes, we certainly should. You can't see me in the moment. And I don't have my vanilla Coke on me. I could say that I did. I could say, oh, I have my vanilla Coke right with me. But yes, I love vanilla Coke. And if any representatives of vanilla Coke are listening to this podcast, please feel free to contact me. I would love to have discussions. But right now I am sitting here with my coffee. Yes, I love my coffee during the day. I'm a very avid coffee drinker. I must say, I would love to blame Lorelai Gilmore for this. The amount of episodes of Gilmore Girls I would watch where she was so dependent on coffee, I think it sort of became like an infectious thing, and suddenly I became addicted to coffee myself. Saucy Bry is here. Hi, Saucy Bry. Thank you very much for tuning into our podcast today. Marissa says, all you want is a free lifetime supply. Well, yes, lifetime should call me. For sure. apparently Marissa's daughter keeps calling her Lorelai. Well, there you go. Do you call her Rory? No, I think Gilmore Girls was a lovely show, and it taught so many great lessons and spoke about so many great issues. I didn't necessarily appreciate the little thing they did on Netflix. What did you guys think about that little seasons thing that did winter, spring, summer, and fall? Because yeah, for me it just wasn't the same. I mean, they tried and they give them credit, but I preferred the series. Marissa is commenting on me asking about Roar, and she says, yes, sometimes, especially when we're freaking out about an empty coffee pot. Well, that doesn't surprise me at all. It sounds very much like Lorelai and Rory. There we go. So, we've been discussing some different things. Is there anything else that you guys would like to talk about? If so, please feel free to leave them in the comments section or to message me on Facebook Messenger. I have both things open and ready to go. Right. Marissa says that I think she's saying she reblogged a few years ago an article called I Am Christian Unless, which really hits on the whole I am unless you don't fit into my beliefs, and it makes me sad as a Christian. There you go. I don't think it's all Christians that think the same way. I don't think it's every single Christian. I do think it has, excuse me, a lot to do with the sort of person in the religion. Some people are very forward in their thinking, some people are not. It's totally fine. No judgment on who the on who you are, how you live your life, and what religion that you have at all. For me, I just wish that those people who had a very strong view because of their religions realize that what we are after is changing the law and not changing the religion. We are more than happy to leave the religion alone. We don't care if you keep us out of your churches. We are focusing on the law. And so I almost find it a little bit insulting that that religious people are coming back about the same marriage argument, talking about why they be able to get married owing to religion, because it's not, in my mind, as a, I guess, representative of the LGBTIQ community, it's just not a religious argument. So there you go. Right, so is there anything else that you guys would like to discuss before we get going? Marissa says, I've been told I am not Christian because I have read the Quran. And that's really interesting. And I find it so fascinating when it comes to these types of religious people, because not everyone's like that, but these type of religious people that sort of say, you are only this if you meet the requirement of A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And so here's another example, because you read the Quran, you're no longer Christian. I mean, would they say the same thing if you read Harry Potter? Yeah, so I think that's rather disappointing. I mean, I don't know anywhere near enough to be able to comment on Christianity, but when you look at the values, like thou shalt not steal, love thy neighbor, etc., etc., I feel that if you are Christian and you follow all of those laws, you should still be accepted as Christian. But then again, it's probably not my place to even comment, let alone say, considering that I'm not a part of that group, so I can't say much. It's interesting though, I was baptized when I was a child into the Anglican Church. I went to whatever you call the children church thing for a couple of years, and then we stopped going. And for me, it was just nothing that I wanted to get back into. When I was still too young to know about Christians and their beliefs about gay people, I still had a relationship with God. I just didn't go to church. And then, of course, time went on and things changed for me with certain things that I would hear. But yeah, it's all very interesting in its own way, isn't it? Right, well, this has been a very interesting discussion. I want to thank everyone who has come along to this podcast, and I'm thinking of certainly doing a few more. I do understand and appreciate the difference in time zones, so it will probably be easier for some of you to come at around this time as opposed to when I do my live chats. But if you enjoyed this podcast or you would like to see more, please let me know by sounding off in the comments once this has uploaded. It will remain on YouTube. And yeah, if you enjoyed it, give me a thumbs up as well. In the meantime, do not forget to get over to the Facebook group, comment below and let me know, where we will have all the information you need regarding this wonderful channel. But until then, as I always say, make love and not war. You know, we really don't have time for war, we don't have time for hate. Love is just as powerful as hate, and it's up to each individual to spread that love, and especially to remind those who may be filled with hate of love. So make love, not war. Definitely give someone a hug today. I'm going to come back on this podcast and ask who you've hugged recently. And peace and love to you all, whoever you are. I'm FrancoisT. Thank you for joining me, and I will speak to you all very, very soon. Bye.